this was supposed to change America forever. A fast train connecting Los Angeles to San Francisco, under 3 hours, cheaper and easier than flying. The rest of the world already did it. Japan has been running bullet trains since 1964. China now has more high-speed rail than every other country on Earth put together. So California decided it was time. In 2008, Californians were told the whole thing would cost $33 billion. That was the deal. That was what they voted for. Today, the official number is $126 billion. And another figure inside the same official report puts it at $231 billion. That is nearly 7 times what people were promised. Over 15 years of construction, over $15 billion already spent, and not one single mile of track has been laid. So what actually happened? And is this really a failure? Or is something much bigger going on? To understand how we got here, you need to know what was actually promised. On November 4th, 2008, the same night Barack Obama was elected president, California voters went to the polls and said yes to a ballot measure called Proposition 1A. The deal was simple. California would build the first real high-speed rail system in America. 800 miles of track connecting San Francisco to Los Angeles. Trains going up to 220 miles per hour, door-to-door in 2 hours and 40 minutes. The ticket price? $55. The total cost? $33 billion. And 53% of Californians said yes. It made complete sense. The drive between LA and San Francisco is 6 hours on a good day. The airports are packed. The freeways are jammed. A fast train wasn't just a dream. It was a real answer to a real problem that millions of people dealt with every day. And the world had already shown it was doable. Japan opened its first bullet train in 1964. France built its network in the 1980s. Spain, Germany, South Korea, all of them running trains at high speed every day reliably. California had the money, the people, and the will. What could possibly go wrong? The physical groundbreaking didn't happen until January 2015, 7 years after the vote. And here is the first thing that surprises most people. Work did not start in Los Angeles. It did not start in San Francisco. It started in the middle of nowhere, specifically in Fresno, a city in California's Central Valley, as far from both major cities as you can get while still being on the route. Why there? Because the land was cheap, there were fewer legal fights, and it was the easiest place to get started. Pushing through the Bay Area or Los Angeles, where land costs millions per acre and every homeowner has a lawyer, that would come later. That choice would turn out to matter enormously. At first, the delays seemed ordinary. Permits took longer than expected. Environmental approvals needed more paperwork. Normal stuff for a project this size. Then came the land problem. To build a rail line across 800 miles, you have to buy up a lot of private land. Some people sell easily, some hold out, some go to court. In California, where property rights are taken very seriously and the legal system moves slowly, buying up the land took years longer and cost far more than anyone had planned for. By 2019, 11 years after the vote, the project was already so far over budget and behind schedule that the governor of California, Gavin Newsom, stood up and admitted publicly that the original plan was no longer possible. He didn't cancel it, he made it smaller. Just focus on the Central Valley first, he said. Get something built, show it works. His opponents called that a retreat. His supporters called it being realistic. Either way, the vision of LA to San Francisco in 3 hours was quietly being put on hold. Now let's talk about the money. Because this is where the story gets hard to believe. In 2008, Californians voted for a project with a $33 billion price tag. That was the number on the ballot paper, the number they were asked to approve. By 2024, that number had already climbed to $106 billion. Then, in April 2026, the California High-Speed Rail Authority released its latest official report. Their own best-case number? $126 billion. Their own worst-case number? $231 billion. $231 billion. That is nearly 7 times what voters were told. To put that in perspective, the entire yearly budget for the state of California, which covers schools, hospitals, roads, police, and everything else the government does, is about $300 billion. This one train project now costs almost as much as that. On top of that, the federal government cut off $4.2 billion in funding in July 2025. The reason? 9 separate problems with the project, including a $7 billion hole in the funding plan, and the fact that California still hasn't even chosen a company to build the actual trains. California took the federal government to court to get the money back. Then, in December 2025, California dropped the case. The money is gone. And 2 months after that, in February 2026, the U.S. Congress permanently cut off another $929 million. In just 7 months, California lost around $5 billion in federal support. And then, the man who had spent years independently checking the project's work, the head of its own official review team, wrote a public report in March 2026. He said the project had reached a dead end. At this point, a fair question is, why? Why can Japan run bullet trains with no problems? Why did China build 25,000 miles of high-speed rail in 20 years, while California hasn't laid a single mile of track in 13? The answer isn't simple, and it isn't just about politics. In China and Japan, the government can buy up land quickly and start building. In the United States, especially California, every big project has to fight through years of environmental reviews, thousands of individual legal cases from landowners, and construction costs that are among the highest anywhere on the planet. Here is a number that really puts it in perspective. California is spending around $207 million per mile to build this railway through the Central Valley, some of the flattest, emptiest farmland in America. Spain built its entire high-speed rail network, which today runs for around 2,400 miles, at an average of about $21 million per mile. California is spending roughly 10 times more per mile than Spain, in a field. And then there is the politics. Every few years there is a new governor, a new president, a new set of priorities. Funding that one administration promises, the next one cuts. Plans that looked solid get rewritten. The project that voters approved in 2008 has had multiple governors, multiple bosses, and multiple complete redesigns, every change adding time and money. When the plan changes, the contracts change. When the contracts change, the costs go up. When the costs go up, the funding falls apart. And then it all starts again. But here is something that gets lost in the headlines. Despite all of it, the cost explosions, the lawsuits, the lost money, the man calling it a dead end, something is still being built. Right now, as of 2026, there are 80 miles of finished concrete structures standing in California's Central Valley. Bridges, overpasses, elevated sections, real, physical things that were not there 10 years ago. Around 2/3 of the first construction stretch is structurally complete, just waiting for track. The plan is to start laying actual track before the end of 2026. If that happens, a 171-mile route connecting Merced to Bakersfield could be carrying passengers by 2033. And the state has locked in $1 billion a year in guaranteed funding through 2045, money from California's environmental program. That is real. It keeps the construction going. But here is the problem with all of that. A train running from Merced to Bakersfield is not what Californians voted for. Those are two medium-sized farming towns in the middle of the state. Most Californians have no reason to make that journey at high speed. Los Angeles and San Francisco, the two cities the whole thing was built around, are still years away, maybe decades. And there is no clear plan yet for how to pay for those sections. But this story is bigger than one train in one state. California's rail project is being watched by people all over the world, not just because of what it is, but because of what it says about America's ability to build things. Because California is not alone in this. In New York, there has been a plan to build a new railway tunnel under the Hudson River since the 1990s. It is still not built. In Los Angeles, a major underground metro line has been under construction for years. Costs have doubled, and the main builder had to be fired and replaced. In Boston, a highway project called the Big Dig started in the 1990s with an original estimate of $2.8 billion. By the time it finished, including interest on loans, the total cost had reached $24 billion, nearly 9 times over budget. These are not rare accidents. This is a pattern. And while all this is happening, other countries keep building. Saudi Arabia built 100 miles of metro rail in its capital city in about 10 years. China opens roughly 2,000 miles of new high-speed rail every single year. Something is different in the United States. The California train is just the most visible example of what that something is. Whether you think the project should keep going or be shut down, whether you see it as a brave investment in the future or a spectacular waste of money, the question it raises is the same one. Can America still build the future? Right now, in the middle of California, something is being built. Slowly, at enormous cost, with no guarantee it will ever be finished as planned. But bridges are standing today that were not there 10 years ago. Real workers showed up this morning. Real engineers are solving problems that have never been solved before. Whether it ends up as the fast train Californians voted for, or a smaller, quieter system nobody originally asked for, or nothing at all, nobody honestly knows yet. What we do know is this. In 1964, Japan opened the world's first bullet train and changed what people thought was possible. In 2008, California looked at that and decided they wanted the same thing. The price tag has become a scandal. The delays have become a joke. The man paid to oversee the project called it a dead end. But the people pouring concrete in that Central Valley field today are building something real. Whether it becomes a train or a monument to good intentions is a question only the next 10 years will answer. If this story made you think, subscribe. Titan Projects. We build the impossible.